Today, it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Chan, and I just want to highlight a few of his works, which are here and afterwards are available for your perusal, and we hope that some of you will actually buy and take them home. So his work, Witness to Power, Holistic Entrepreneurs in China, and finally, Religious Freedom in China, Policy, Administration, and Regulation. And this is co-authored with Eric Carlson. So please take the opportunity to go look at these books. Dr. Chan is the Honorary Research Fellow of the University Service Center for China Studies. This is a part of Chinese University of Hong Kong. He is also Executive Secretary of the Hong Kong Christian Council. Finally, he is an appointed Justice of the Peace for the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region government. So he comes to us speaking from this broad experience on the topic of myths and facts about Christianity regarding the People's Republic of China. So please welcome Dr. Chan.
Someone going to... Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for the kind introductions. And this evening I'm going to just briefly outline and share something about the growing phenomenon that is Christianity in China. But I'll be focusing more on the Protestant side of it, and also more the contemporary side, namely after 1979. Because you're all aware of the fact that since 1949, well, under the regime of the People's Republic of China, all religions undergone some, well, I'll say difficulties or changes. And during a period of time from 1966 to 1979, actually no religions officially exist in China because they're all not allowed to practice, except for a few chapels in Beijing for the diplomatic community. And it was only after 1979 that the religious activities were allowed to re-emerge. And I had the privilege to actually begin my career or begin my journey in China in 79, because I was teaching at that time in the medical school in Beijing, Union Hospital, it's now called the Union Hospital. It used to be a missionary hospital. I was there teaching nutrition. And I tried to find a church, but there wasn't even a single one open yet. The first church was reopened in Ningpo in April 1979. I wasn't there. And the second church reopened was the War Memorial Church in Shanghai. And I was happy to be there on the reopening in Shanghai after I taught in Beijing, went to Shanghai and just witnessed that amazing experience that there was nothing there. But everyone was crying. There's no Bible. There was just a handprint, whatever ordered. And there were some psalms in there and some gospel passage. And everyone was there just crying. Tears ran down because they couldn't openly worship God for more than 2 decades, most of them in Shanghai. And I visited some of those Christians and began to have a contact with them. And they graciously took me in because I'm just very young person. And they took me into their families to meet with their so-called house church. And in 1980, I was able to travel to 22 provinces to meet with Christians there who actually went through the ordeals and came up from the ruins, and also now meeting in the different places. I began to hear stories of how they went through all those experiences. And I became so humble myself that at that time I was doing like graduate studies in theology along with my nutrition work. But I would have to humble myself to learn from them, learn from the experience. So ever since then, I got an interest in that. I became an observer. Later on, I read the scripture, man does not live by bread alone. As a nutritionist, I have to change my career to become a spiritual nutritionist, so I became a pastor. And aside from that, so my journey just kept on, could not sort of disassociate myself from China. So in the 80s, I concentrated my studies on contemporary China, did my graduate work in there, later on did some work in history also related with China. And worked as a chaplain before. My esteemed colleague there, Professor Paul, was one of my very respectful colleagues at that time, the guides actually committees on the work that I was working at Chongqing College. Thank you for that. I learned a lot from him. And also his writings too. Excellent writings. Also, I've been working back and forth in China in the early 90s. Late the mid-90s, I began to actually live in China, in Qinghai province, to live among the Tibetans, to learn and to serve, actually to learn. And ever since then, I've been sort of back and forth with China as I again emphasize, as an observer, observing how God works in China. And so began to, my observation, also publications for about 40 books now on that areas, religions, covering the Catholics, Protestants, and later on religious policy in general. So I kept on learning, and as the mystery of China, especially God's work in there, unfolding in front of my eyes. Right now, my job allows me to travel to and work in China. I'm doing pastoral trainings in actually all the provinces in China now, and except in Xinjiang. Half my time is in Hong Kong, half the time is in China, back and forth in different trips and liaison work, and visit different communities, different churches and different seminaries, and do teachings in there at the same time to learn how God works in China. So I'm going to give a very brief, that's my background, so you know where I come from. And at the same time, I'm going to show you some PowerPoint, that's my main presentation, and then I'll give a lot of time for you to raise issues so that we can discuss more, because it's a huge topic, and it's very complex. At the same time, it's very controversial. Okay. Now, basically, Christianity in China, just very brief overview that in our historical perspective, there are different major confessions, namely the Protestants, Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, and the Coptics, and the Church of the Eastern Nestorians in other theological traditions. And I can say that all these branches have representations in China already. Next. So I just briefly skip over this more. So the first of all, the Nestorian Church, you all know that, went to China in 635 AD, and with a lot of monuments. Actually, the last recording sighting of the Nestorians were being recorded by the Tsar's army in Xinjiang province, Yilin cities, as late as 1880s. The whole communities were still there. And recently, the Nestorian bishops actually went to Hong Kong and to China. They visited us a couple of times. He said he wants to sort of restore the former glory in China, hopefully. And the monuments there, and there are the tablets there, the Nestorian cross. That's the they've been in China, the Christians, from 635 all the way as late as in 1880s. So a long span. This is the Inner Mongol Museum. This is basically the tombs, different script, Mongolians and Syriac. That means they're the different languages. And this is the very famous cross and the lotus, and in the Xi'an, the tablet, the Nestorian tablet. The Orthodox have also been in China for more than 25 years. They began their work in Beijing, and it's basically the Slavonic, the Russians. Now, in actually 1955, there were more than 30,000 Russian Orthodox in China with more than 100 priests. That was that number. In Harbin, Hankou, Shanghai, and other places. It's also a China Autonomous Orthodox Church. Now it's about, as far as last week, still one priest remaining. Page. They also have 120 canonized saints. Chinese saints, canonized in 1930s. This is the icon. Okay, if you want to go in, please. And okay. This is, I'm sure you know the Sophia, one of the largest Orthodox churches. Now it's a museum. This is the last priest, Mikao Huang. He's 86 or 87 years old. I was taking a picture last year. As of last year, he's still alive because I communicate with him and still very alert. Speak fluent Russians. Also, we have Greek Orthodox in Hong Kong. You know that. Also, Coptic church are also in Hong Kong, under part of China. And they already established a parish in here. since since 4 years ago. Okay. Now, so general profile religion in China basically is state over religion. In other words, unlike in Hong Kong where state separate from religion, but in Hong Kong, the government in China, the government defines religion, and also they rule over religion. Right now, there are 5 religions in China, 5 major religions, because they also recognize some smaller ones, like the Mormons, for example. The 5 major religions are Protestants, Catholics, Muslims, Taoism, and Buddhism. And of course, in China, it's always a multi-religious settings. Unlike in other countries, there's no dominating religion in China. And also there are multi-ethnic groups. So some ethnic groups will tend to have certain kind of religious practices more than the others. And the government's policy basically is to keep everyone happy and harmony. So they insist that it's better for non-religious government to rule over religion so that they will not fight each other. It will be more fair. Otherwise, if there's a religious inclined government, then it will not be the case. So there's a religious policy in China. Basically, 3 words: controlled, confined, and contained. So everyone is happy, okay, and be harmonious. Okay. Now, just take a brief word on the religious policy. Now, in the religious policy, there is basically the Religious Affairs Bureau, which is the executive arm of the government, and also the United Front Work Department, which is the policy wing of the party. You know that in China, the party actually rule over the government. It's a parallel structure. So the United Front will basically decide the policy, and the Religious Affairs Bureau will execute the policies. And of course, in China, you know that there are 6 levels of administration. You have the national level, you have the provincial levels, and you have the municipal level, you have the county level, you have the township village level, and then you have the sub-village levels. And each level will have corresponding government structures. In other words, it's like a matrix. And very often you hear things on the central government doesn't necessarily apply to the provincial government, and so on and so forth. So anything can be possible in China. So what you hear is all true. So yet they may be very conflicting from one province to another. And then you also have the religious bodies themselves. All the religious bodies are being organized by the government as a national body, say the Protestants. So there's no denomination there to speak of, but you have different traditions. And you have the national body for the China Christian Council, and then you have the provincial level of the provincial councils, and then you have the municipal council, you have the county council, you have the township or village council, and then you have the sub-village councils. 6 levels also, corresponding to the governments. So it's very bureaucracy. That's part of China. And then you have the Public Security Bureau. There's a special section on religion. Now, just to clarify that, anything that is not under the normal so-called operation government designed by the state is considered as illegal. So if it's illegal, it's under the public securities work. If it's legal, it's under the religious affairs work. So very often I work in China, and I talk to the Religious Affairs Bureau. They say, "Oh, what about that meeting? They haven't registered it." The Religious Affairs Bureau said, "Well, it's not my business. I only care about the normal part of the society. If there's anything abnormal, it's the public securities work. It's none of my affair." So it's quite clear distinction. But if there's anything related with foreigners or Hong Kong, Macau compatriots, it's not under public security. It's under national security. It's the CIA or the KGB right now. Okay. Anything with the foreigner is not a public security. It's called the National Security Bureau. They are supposed to be not existing. But they don't tell you they exist. They never carry name cards, there's no address, but you know where they are. So I'll tell you a secret. There's no secret in China. Don't tell anyone about that. Now, also concerning religion, there's another government branch, there's the National Minority Affairs Commission, because there are 56 ethnic groups in China. All those ethnic groups, say Tibetans, they're almost all Tibetan Buddhists. And in Xinjiang, the Uyghurs, they're almost all Muslims. So in a way that if it is national minority groups, if they practice religion, it's not under religious affairs. It's under the National Minority Affairs Commission. So they are half a rank over the religious affairs. So sometimes you have dual and sometimes triple jurisdictions. So all these groups have an interest and stake on religion in China. So imagine the church, if it exists in China somewhere, so they will be under the policy-wise for United Work Department, administrative-wise under their own body, as well as by the Religious Affairs Bureau. And if there's anything go beyond the law, then it's under the Public Securities. If there's a minority, there's under Minorities Commission. So you get so many people who can rule over you. That's China. But okay. Now, just briefly talk about the Roman Catholic Church. Have been in China for more than 700 years. It's church-state relations and Vatican problems you all hear in the newspaper, which I will not touch upon in here. And the next one, Michael Ricci, you all know that. The statues in China, and they're still honoring him. Next. Okay, just speed forward a bit, please. And just some foot. In the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, you have the Shanghai Cathedral, and well, currently the bishop is under house detention for not obeying the Calvinist order. And in the Catholic Church, you have the illegal but illicit and the violent, complicated canonical status. So on the picture on the right are the so-called underground church, on the picture on the left, so-called the above ground church. But actually, nothing's underground, technically speaking. And everyone knows what is going on. Okay. Now the Protestants, let's move forward a bit. Now, basically in 1949, there was only 1 million of Protestants. Don't need to take pictures, I'll leave the whole PowerPoint behind. Okay. We have such technology as just copying the files. And there's no copyright. I mean, how can I have copyrights in China? So just... but in 1980, remember what I said that when basically the government opens the certain rooms for religious practice, it was already estimated more than 3 million Protestants. Remember, from 1949, the Chinese population was only 450 million. In 1980, the population was 800 million, so doubled. Yet, Christians grew by 3 times, under the most harsh condition you can think of. So therefore, it means that the whole church had been growing in a very clandestine way. The more suppression you have, the fastest the growth seems to be. And that's what I hear all the stories. And in 1980 to year 2000, it's a rapid growth period in rural areas. And then for the past 10 years, rapid urbanization in China, so the urban growth plus a lot of other growth as well. So number of official statistics is 26 million, but someone would venture to think of almost 100 million. Well, it's methodological issues. How do you define the Christian? So therefore, they're all valid, the numbers. But more importantly, what is the meaning behind the number is more important than the number itself. And then right now, there's in China, it's just finished printing 100 million copies of the Bible. And there are more than 20 seminaries and Bible schools. I've taught in almost all of them already. And plus more than about 4,000 training centers all over China. Almost every country will have at least 1 training center now, because there's not enough Bible schools around. Okay. Now I'm just seeing some pictures. Because some traditional churches that was built in a very kind of indigenous way, very old, built in the 1930s. You see the Chinese styles. It was a move from the indigenization during that period of time. The church still works. Now there's some new churches, all kinds. The old ones in Qingdao areas, like a German cathedrals, basically is Lutherans background. And the right one, it's just a newly built rural church in the border of Myanmar, or Burma, and China. And I would say, okay. And this is by the Jingpo peoples, the Karens, we call it in Myanmar. Okay. Next. So you have the urban contemporary church. This one is Chongyi Church. House about the normal Sunday service is about 5,000 people. Right now the seating capacity is not the biggest nowadays. Now There's 4 other churches in buildings, probably finished by this year, 6,000, 7,000, 9,000. And it's always packed with free services. Now, this church, interestingly enough, you may have recall a guy, Reverend Dr. Lee Yong-hong, the Korean, the senior pastor of the Yodo Gospel Church, the largest church in the world with 800,000 members. Right. He was the successor of David Yongji Cho. Now, he actually went to this church, was invited by the Chinese church to preach on 4 weeks ago on Pentecostalism. They are from the charismatic background. And not only the church was packed, but there was a simultaneous internet broadcasting by the church. And how many people logged on simultaneously? 1.2 million. Also run by this church, a huge sort of internet networks. It's open church, it's a big one. Okay, now you have the urban church of Granmont. This is in the Jiangxi province. This is a very humble one in Tangshan after the earthquake, used to be a Methodist church. You have this big one in Lanzhou. This church is important. This is in the Gansu province, the capital city of Lanzhou. The building next to this church building was just newly built, about 3,000 people, with a training center there. And the one there next to it was the building for the Gansu Provincial Communist Party's committees. In other words, this is the party, the government, this is the church, and this is a rule. The church cannot be taller than the government's building. Recently we have a court case that the church in our city had a very tall cross, big cross, and versus the government building next door was just about, the church cross was about 2 meters taller than the government building. The government insists that they have to change the plans so they cannot be taller than the communist parties. So see who is the boss. Now, this is the inside of the contemporary church in Hangzhou, where they got about 5,000-6,000 people, just like a contemporary church you see in the States. No difference. The architect is a Chinese American, a friend of mine. A huge pipe. Now, this is a traditional church, liturgical church using the Anglican liturgies, also in the same city. So you get all kinds. Okay, this is the typical church in the Hebei province, packed with people, a simple one in the urban one. Now, sometimes in the rural area, you see this kind of grand church standing in Wenzhou areas. They now built one with 9,000 people. They already installed a huge pipe organ there, cost 15 million. Donated by one Christian, a Wenzhou merchant. The Wenzhou is rich areas. So now you have a humble one. This is in Guizhou, middle of nowhere. And haven't finished it because ran out of money. So, okay. This is a typical one. Rural church that's in the border of China and Laos. That's about 15 kilometers from the Laos border. I was there preaching. And this is a Hebei rural church in the countryside in the Jiao County, Jiaoxian. This is a very, very simple one, open air one, in a small county in the Yunnan province. In the winter time, it snows, and that church on the Sunday housed about 400 to 500 people. So if you go there early, you can see the roof. Otherwise, you're all in the courtyard. That's why there's a big loudspeaker there, near the trees. Okay. Now this is a very typical rural basic church. That actually was a former barnyard, the Christian roof, and then they took it over and became a church. And I was the one who just came out from there. You have to climb up there. Now this is a typical rural church in the northern part of Guangdong province on Christmas Day. This is the inside of the church where I just came out of the picture before. So dark, because we use a flash. That's why it's a bit light, the color. Oh, this is an interesting one. This is the first Tibetan church in China. See, they all dress like the Tibetans, and I too have to dress like the Tibetans. There's a picture there, and there's training. It was about 3,200 meters above sea level, this church. Tibetans is okay. Back to that. And interesting architect, no one told them how to build a church. The church started about in 1994, when the first Christian, this gentleman became a Christian, and he was also the head of the village. So he converted his household, and also later on, after 4 years, almost the whole village were converted. So this church was built in 1998, and I was there in 1999. And it's still every year they run a training program. And now this church, based on this church high in the mountains, they send relatives around to spread the gospel. Right now in that region is already 18 Tibetan churches, starting from zero. Oh, I wrote the article on that in one of our Hong Kong Christian Council's English newsletter on the genesis of the Tibetan Church in China. Personally read this. Okay, next. Oh, this post-cervical, this is quite commonly seen, but okay, next one. Okay, now, just okay. Now, basically, how many Christians are there in China? How do you define who is a Christian? Do you just count them if they baptize, they will convert? If that's the case, I was once working in Norway for doing some statistical work with them to do some meteorological trainings with the pastors there. And I did some studies and I asked them, how many Christians are there in Norway? They said, 97% of them are baptized. Does it mean that under the 5 million population at the time, 6 years ago, then they have more than 4.89 million Christians? But how about the church attendance in Norway? 2.6% on Sunday. On Christmas Day, 4.8%. So does it mean that they have that? What's the meaning of our number? So therefore, the government estimated that 26 million. But there are many Christians in China who are baptized but never go back to church again. Do you count them? And there are many of them who does not even baptize. And they met in their households, whatever. They will study the Bible. Some of those who are party members in the armies or in the academias, they never admit that they are so-called baptized Christians. But they do have certain kind of spirituality and also following the biblical teaching in their daily life. Do you call them? How do you count them? So therefore, and plus there's a lot of double countings we notice. A lot of peoples, they will, any given date, probably register with those government-sanctioned churches, but at the same time, they will also attend a lot of house groups, small gatherings, and then they will also be counted by those groups as one of the members. I've noticed in some cities, surprisingly, some inflated figures are even more than the population of their country. Theologically correct, because communion of saints, you will count all those souls in the future. Come on. How do you know that there will be another 2 million, believe after you in the country? So in a theologically correct way, yes, we have a lot of confidence and faith. But that happens in China. And also when I work in the rural areas, I often ask people, how many people are in the room with those pastors? There are two types of figures. One statistical number, the other one anthropological numbers. Anthropological number is that when I see a group, I always check numbers. That how many people are there? 500. A lot of people in the crowd. I took a snapshot and count 200 and something. How many people are there gathering in the households? 200. But went to the household, I noticed that no matter how tight you pack people in, even in a Chinese or Japanese subway, you cannot pack more than 100 until you squeeze some people there to death. So, but for them, they're not lying. They're telling me that, this is small, medium, and large. So 200, 500, 1,000. Anything more than 1,000 is 5,000, like a biblical number. There were 5,225 in the books of Acts. No, 5,000, 3,000. So those are anthropological numbers, not statistical numbers. So I always do the checking. I have to sort of calibrate the numbers. And so that's the methodology. I'm not saying that those people are not alive, but I'm saying that we have to be careful with numbers. So our working estimate is about 50 to 60 million that are regularly having so-called religious activities on a weekly basis. That number is about the same number of the church attendance in the United States. I did it a couple of times in London. We did a calculation and find out, oh, yes. Oh, by the way, there are more Catholics in China than in Ireland. Yeah. Well, once in China, we talk about big numbers, sorry. Now, but does the number translate into social transformation? Does it mean that if there's a high number of Christians, it will be better or worse in those regions? I did also some checkings. For example, in Wenzhou, there's about 7 million populations, most of them are virgins, and they claim 1 million Christians. That means 14%. In Hong Kong, what's the percentage of Christians? Protestants about 6%, Catholics 4%, totally add up no more than 11%. But in Wenzhou alone, they claim that they have 15% Protestants. And then check the crime record of Wenzhou and the whole surrounding Zhejiang province. If there's any lowering of crime rates in there, I couldn't see any statistical significance in there. Not yet. Anyways, next. Now, we try to see things in black and white. Or you hear things, this is official church, those are the underground church, this is a house church, those are the fake church, whatever, or the government church. Well, in the 1980s, yes, there are such demarcation lines. Because many of my relatives are actually from the non-registered underground church. My auntie was in labor camp for 25 years because of her faith. She was one of the top students of Shanghai conservatories, but refused to send the international. Because there's, in the international, there's a verse that there's no savior. So refused to send that. She lost her job, she lost everything, and she was in the farm for 25 years. I took her out in 1979, and she started underground church ever since. Well, underground, above ground, it's all paid by our families, 3-story high. So, and another uncle, well, I have another branch, my father's side, that he's the head of the official church in Guangxi province. So, I have access to both camps personally, my relatives, and they all work in the same families actually. In that way, in China right now it's much more complicated. So I'm trying to classify. Some of them are registered and some of them not registered. And many of them are going in between, depending on where you are. And some of them are registered both with the China Christian Council, or the Free Self, and the Religious Affairs Bureau. Others are registered only with the Religious Affairs Bureau, but not with the China Christian Council. Confusing? Even more. Some of them are temporary registration. That means the government allows you, and from temporary registration to full registration, it may take 10, 15, 20 years. So how do you define that period? Are you registered? Are you not registered? And then some of them are non-registered but acknowledged. That means they visit the government, visit you almost on a weekly basis. They all know what happens, you know what happens. Every more operates in the open, where they acknowledge you. Some of them, they tolerate you. That means you don't care about the government, but they know who you are. They won't do anything. And some of them are prohibited. In other words, there's so many different types of existence in China. And plus, there are the groups that is moving from one category to another, depending on the local politics and depending on the local personnel. We have much more in-house fighting than anyone in the Protestant world. Well, how many Christians are there in China? Well, one gentleman told me, he's a very faithful, very old gentleman, been see a lot. He said, well, look at the sky, Kim. He said, oh yeah, do you see any stars? Well, that was a bright night, many stars. Oh yeah, in a bright night you see a lot of stars, but in a cloudy night you don't see any. That's how many Christians are in China, depending on political weather. So, I guess that's the best answer I get so far. That's China. So you have those in the China Christian Council. They are officially recognized. They are sort of deal with this hierarchical structure, but very much autonomy in regional, in a regional way. Government, depending on the relation with the government, some operates better than the others. Some are under a lot of suppression, but others are still operate so free. It all depends on which so-called government that you're under, because we have we have one central government, the case of policy, which few listens to, but the regional government, you have what? 28 provincial and municipal governments, and then you have 222 municipal governments, and you have 2,885 county governments. So many governments in China, they all, up to the county level, can have their own legislations. So depending on which government you are under. Just give you a very interesting example. I once was in a prefecture in Yunnan province. There are 4 counties in there. In one county, it's called the Christian county because 85% of the population are Christians. So the county governor is also the party secretary, is also an elder of the church. He was both trained by the Cardinals Academy and also the seminary. And don't ask me what he believes. So that is a Christian county. You do anything, you tell the church, otherwise nothing get done. But the county next to it they prohibit any Christian activities. And the third county, basically, they don't care about what you do. The fourth county, you pay and you can do anything you like. So even within the same county, the prefecture government had almost no jurisdiction on the local county affairs. So that's what happens, from suppression to total open, within the same prefecture. Okay, next. Now, as for the non-registered groups, I like to use the term, which in one of my writings I come up with the term autonomous Christian communities. In other words, they exist autonomously, there are different structures, there's no central networking. You may call them a family church, which is a bit misnomer, or no house church, because they seldom will they exist in a house nowadays. They rent big places, they have their own setups and all that. And easily mythologized and sensationalized by outsiders. Now, basically, the church in China is very simple. You have what? Say 30 or 40 million Christians. They all sort of, most of them are not from Christian background because you only got 3 million Christians in 1980. So most of them were converted much later on with virtually no Christian backgrounds. And almost all of them are adult conversions. So you get a huge number of new Christians with very minimum Christian formation, with no Christian backgrounds. So what do you get? A lot of people, a few leaderships. So that's the crisis in China. So young Christian leaders, in the past we have some very old people with a lot of spiritual insights, but they are all now gone. Now in China, almost all the churches, big ones, small ones, are run by people in the 20s, in the 30s, even in the 40s. When you're 50 years old, you're very old in China, in these new leadership rankings. But imagine someone that with just 30, 40 years old, he or she may have to take care of church, say size of 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people. So they are overworked, exhausted, very pragmatic. They don't care about politics, they care about survival. You get so many Christians coming into the church with very minimum church backgrounds, Christian backgrounds. What do you get? You need to have a lot of formation education, a lot of pastoral care. How do you care for that? There's not enough sufficient people. There's only 20 seminaries in China. Think of it. The largest one is about 200 people. The smallest one is about 80 people. Each year they crank out, they train, I would say, less than 300 people or more. But some of them just took a batch student once every 2 years. So say you get 300 graduates every year. But you have, say, 30 million people. I mean Christians. How many people per new graduate? You do the mathematics. And you know it. In a city, it's one pastor per about 500 parishioners. In the rural areas, 1 to 2,000 to 5,000. And also they live quite far away. I've seen those pastors traveling around every day, different villages. They go back home once every 3 weeks, just to do the preachings, the very basic stuff. And after 3 years, burn out. So a high casualty rate in China. So that's the problem. I mean, you look at the big numbers, but I look at the actual realities. But now, final 2 pictures. This is the picture I took in that Tibetan village. This is the first, one of the very first believers, Tibetans, in the top village. And she was very faithful. Each Sunday she went there. The first thing she did, she couldn't read, she couldn't write, but she just kneel down, sit down and pray for about half an hour. And remember whatever the relatives, whatever. It's very faithful, humble lady. And she took along her granddaughter. Next picture. Beautiful girl. And she is what I see the future of the church in China. Young with hope. And the old lady was those who had to be the foundation of the church. I see still hope because it's not the work of man, it's the work of God. I see so much miraculous things happening in front of my eyes. Each time I go and visit them, I'm the one who gain a lot, more than anything else. I'm being very much encouraged by them, by their work, by their dedications. Although there are problems, difficulties, but overall, I see this. Okay. I'm going to stop here for a couple of minutes, and for a while, maybe you have some questions, issues you can raise, and I can just probably respond to it.
How could a church like Union participate in this?
Okay.
Because it is a patriotic, nationalistic church.
Well, that's on the rhetoric. See, I'll put it this way. Each time when I go there, I'm not going there to help. I'm going there to learn and to share. I have as much as to give as I to receive from them. And it's a humbling experience for me. And I have to admit that it's much more difficult to receive than to give. Especially for us. We like to do things to others. Yet, each time when I go there, they enrich my life a lot. So, participate is excellent because they are part of the body of Christ. Any encounter with them will be mutually beneficial for both sides. Because God works in your church, God also works in their church, but in a different way. I'm sure the most important thing, the first thing, is to understand them, to know them, and to visit them, just to be with them. That's the best way. And to go there, I'm sure that you have to spend a lot of effort to prepare yourself, and you may not have able to do anything. Please try not to do too much. We are endurers. But the most important thing is to listen, to receive, to accept, to understand, to be present. And that's the most important thing. Just like someone's coming to you, maybe the best way to do is to listen, to be with them. But if you go there, you have to pay a high cost, I would say. The most limited resource we have is not money, it's time, it's your presence. Do I say that? Within an hour, well, even within a day, you can travel to most of the major cities in China, like Shanghai and Beijing. Those churches, those Christians are so well visited. It's a burden for them to visit another foreign delegations, like the Union Church. But there are so many Christians who are in the faraway places that no one ever visits them. Can I show the video? Is it possible? If not, let's forget it. Because last time, but if you go to those places, you have to pay some cost. That's your time. Like, I'm going to show you just the first part of it. The first file. Don't know what it is. Anyways, just click on and see. Okay. I don't need the sound. I took a team of people from Macau to visit a very remote place in the middle of nowhere, which no one has ever visited because it's just a bit too far away. It took them to travel to Kunming, and then they did take the shuttle plane to the Baozhang area, stay overnight. The third day took a tractor to right up to the mountains. The kids are following us. We took 1.5 tons of clothing for them at that date, on the Christmas day. Now, this is the pathway. We are going up there, and this is the church. This is the village, yours truly. And these are the Lisu Christians, the whole area. This is the chapel over there. I'm sure you heard better. Yours better than us. Now, they host us, the whole village, a feast. They give us the best, a big piece of pork, high cholesterol. And I eat it all. That's the best they have. So Well, we eat, and they're watching us, and we have a Christmas celebration. It's that they don't have any tables, so they have to borrow tables from another village in order to give us a long table sitting together. And some of the villages, the kids, they're all Christians. They never have a picture taken before, so we took a Polaroid camera, which is not easy to find nowadays. So don't give them digital things because they don't have electricities up there, erratic electricities. Now, this is December the 25th. This is Christmas Day. This is what happened. These are Christians. These are the little Christians. They're still very traditional, sitting woman on one side, men on the other side. Otherwise, you are very indecent. They will be shocked if they come here. Don't you guys? How can you Christians? You're not Christians. You are beyond redemption. No. So we follow that tradition. This is the decorated church for Christmas celebrations. We sing hymns with them. But in order to go there, you spend 2.5 days. And then you spend one day there, and 200 days to go back. But it's worthwhile. The time. Those Christians, they were 6 or 7 days off just to took them. This is the villages. You see, the view is gorgeous. The living condition is terrible. So those are the tractors. We play with the kids. Some of them, the first time they saw a balloon. Oh, having fun. Okay. So this is to be with them. Just to enjoy their presence, enjoy their hospitalities, to affirm that they're not alone. Yeah. Okay. So this is my response. Yeah, you can participate. By the time you know them better, you have a heart for them, then you can think of something that you can share with them, maybe in different ways, material ways, or whatever. Because I've been visiting this community for several years, so I know their needs. So we raise funds for the clothing purchased in China, ship it out there. That time we took 1.5 tons of goods out there. And there are many of those villages like that, buying there. And build the chapels. The shed they have, this is the church. And we gave them, last year I gave them $8,000. And then they built this church themselves, because they couldn't afford to buy the materials. Anything up there is much more expensive down here, because everything has to be transported out. Yeah.
I've got several questions, so I don't
Sure.
like go one by one.
Yeah, go all the questions. Yeah, fire all questions.
How literate people are they in general? Are they and when?
Depends on which part of China you're talking about. You mean the Christians in China? They can be very sophisticated to very down to earth. Depending on, it's following the population profile, China.
Because I'm thinking if we don't have any people to minister there, the only way we can help them is to read them Bible. So
They have more than enough Bibles.
they have more.
Oh yes. Now we are supporting some of people to teach them to read. Extra. Oh, I just said, China just finished printing off 100,000 million Bibles. No, sorry, 100 million, yes, copies as of 2 months ago. And they even print Bibles for many countries now. It's the largest Bible producing place in the world, China. Yeah.
But it may be okay for them to like print Bible and then it's for it.
Don't bring them, buy them in China, it's cheaper this way. Yeah, I see there's a lot of other rumors. But I mean that you can buy anything. Right now they don't care about, they buy the like those English Chinese versions of so many different versions in China. You can just buy any time, you pay cash, you don't pay credit card.
Does that include the Tibetan Bible as well?
Of course, yes. Yes, I've seen that. No, the Tibetan Bible now they're retranslating it. Because the Tibetan communities are so small. Basically, those people are using Chinese Bible and the Lishu Bibles. And they're not enough. And also, there's different types of Tibetans. In China, there are 4 different Tibetan scripts. There are different types, and they cannot be conversed with each other. The Tibetan Bible you used to have was the very classic ones in India. But most of the Tibetans in China were not able to read those Bibles. Because I used to work in Tibetan area, I learned Tibetan, I spoke Andong Tibetans, but not the Lhasa Tibetan. And those is 40% convertibles. Yeah, and there's also the Kham Tibetans, there are also the Nachi Tibetans, the 4 different ways. But the number is so minimum at this stage. So. It's a problem of so-called the Bible translation issues in China too. It's modernization and other issues involved.
Right. Has Christians ever tried to go into the Uyghurs area?
Of course,
Because they are mostly Muslims.
I know. Yes.
Are they allowed to speak to them or?
The government would not allow that. It's not the government, the local community will not allow that. Because we have churches in Xinjiang. Actually, the Chinese Christians have tried to convert the Uyghurs as early as 1930s and 1940s already. There are a lot of teams to work there. My denomination worked there since 1946. The first church in Xinjiang was built by the denomination which ordained me, the China CNEC. And we started work in Xinjiang. By 1950, we have 7 churches in Xinjiang now we're operating. And by 1946, we baptized a lot of Uyghurs, my predecessor. Yes, a lot of works already taken place, but it's not translated in English. That's why you don't know it. But it's only known by the historians, some of the very the obscure areas. Actually, I wrote 2 chapters on those Tibetans, Chinese missions to Muslims, recently published. Yes, a lot. But no, be careful. Because the Xinjiang government had a special rule saying that no Christians is allowed to preach to the Muslims. Well, I'm afraid that they will stir up a lot of riots. Because it happens several times. I was there too when one of the riots took place in Qinghai. There was some of the, several people were converted from Muslims into Christianity. And then the Muslim community took that as an excuse to cause a riot in Xining, the capital of Qinghai. And saying that they try to signalize the Muslim, but allow the Christians to preach to the Muslims and destroy their cultural identity. So in order to live a harmonious society, so the government insists the Christians will not allow to preach to the Muslims, at least not in public. So it's not the government's problem, it's a community problem, it's the Muslims' problems. And the government will try to avoid these kind of conflicts as much as possible. So it's a steady policy now in Xinjiang. Technically, the church does not exist, but yes, they register.
How indigenous is the church in China? Most of the time you hear that it is very influenced by the Western missionaries. What is your opinion about that? How the church so growing so fast? Is it a typical Chinese church, or is it very influenced by the Western theology?
The church growth in China, the 2 phases. The first part was that during the Cultural Revolution, there's no missionary activity, but it grew by its own way. And the fastest growth rate was from 1980 to year 2000. Again, no foreign missionaries there. So sometimes, of course, I wouldn't say that the church grows faster without missionaries. That's the wrong assumption. You say indigenization, but my problem is that what do you mean by indigenization? Well, when all the staff are being sort of staffed by locals, does it mean indigenized? Not necessarily, because the mentality may be very Western. Yes, that is now at this stage, the Chinese church, the theologies at least, are very conservative. Like the Buddhists, the fundamentalists dated back in the 1930s, because they have not been able to expose to our theological developments since 1950s. And they were afraid to open up, because once they open up, they were afraid that they will betray their faith. So right now in China, it's very conservative, and that is partly due to the so-called mission educations. But at the same time, it's beginning to open up, and they begin to search the relevancy, the reflection on their own faith now, if only now. But it's a luxury. Right now, the most needed things is the basic pastoral care. So anything beyond that is a luxury at this stage. So they are on the survival level, but hopefully they will go to much more. So I hope we'll be rethink about the indigenization issues later on.
Let's take questions offline. So afterwards, Dr. Chen, if you will be here, we could do some questions up here with a smaller group. I think some need to leave at 7.
Okay.
Just a reminder, Dr. Chan's books are on the table here. Please take a look at those. We'll be selling those. Also, Pastor Greg asked me to announce that if you're a professor or you're in academia, please check out also on this table, there's a conference coming up that he's been promoting here at Union. So the information for that is here. Finally, if you're new to the Well and you're not on our monthly email blast, which tells you what I went over, that I, Howard Marshall, will be here and several other professors, please sign up for that. At the beginning of March, I will send you an email that will let you know who's speaking. Okay, so make sure if you haven't received one of those emails, to please sign up. And it's right on the chair there. There's a little sign-up sheet. So
I'll just say a few words of books then.
Okay.
Basically, there are. I'm supposed to ask them to go to the bookstore to get those books, but somehow the YMCA bookstore seems to fail to come up with it. So I just grabbed a few copies from my office. That's only I have. The one that is Witnesses for the Power of God is about the 12 different stories of the different types of Christian existence in China, from minority groups, underground, above ground, whatever, and miracles. And the other one is on the World Health. When China entered the WTO, the World Trade Organization, look at it as an initiative to look at the Chinese Christian entrepreneurs. How do they combine their faith with their missions? And the possibilities that the Christian ethics and the business ethic issues. And then the red one is about if you like to know more about the religious policy and etc. and the regulations and how to understand China in general about religion and governance, so-called administration. That's the big red book, not the little red book. So the big red book is 120 Hong Kong, the other two is 80 each. So you can just leave the cash. Whoever would like to help you to collect the money, that's fine. Yeah. And if you want more copies of that, actually this one and also the holistic entrepreneurship should be available at the YMCA bookstore, Salisbury Road. I was told actually they still have some copies there.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Okay.
So I can just.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor.